Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Roscoe, coming at you with part 3 of Reflections of a First-Time Father. If you haven't saw parts 1 and 2, just scroll down my timeline till you see them. I think you'll find great wisdom in what I said. As people always tell me, it's funny how I can go off on something and encourage people all in the same breath. But you got to tell the truth, and oftentimes truth is controversial. But scroll down my timeline, see the first 2 parts if you haven't seen them. And in one of those videos, I told you in part 3, I was going to ask a question based on the observation I seen as me and my wife was going to her doctor's visits, at the OBGYN office. And that observation was, and as I tell about the observation, then I asked the question, then just fly out the question. But, as we were going through to the doctor's appointments at the offices over this 9-month period, as I'm sitting there in the waiting room and seeing women walking in and out of the office, of course, a lot of pregnant women, and some women was going for some other female issues. I assume, by being a women's doctor, of course I know that. But anyway, I made this observation. Well, I'll put it this way. As I'm sitting in there, seeing pregnant women going in and out, over that 9-month period, I can count on one hand how many men I actually saw with their wives or girlfriends or whatever the situation may be. So it made me ask the question, and here's the question: men, where are you? Where are you? Now, with some of the women, I give some of the men the benefit of the doubt that they had work obligations and didn't have the flexibility to be there with their wives, girlfriends, or whoever it may be. And with some, it was probably their second or third child, so they know what the process is like. And they was like, well, I know from the previous time, so I won't be there. But more often than not, and I know this, and I don't have to have super deep discernment to know that most of the women in there were doing it alone. And a lot of the women, I did look at their hands and I didn't see rings on the finger. And you may say, I don't care what society may say today, but still, sex outside of marriage is still a sin. Now, if you're having sex, God don't condemn you. If you had a child out of wedlock, that don't mean the child is worthless and can't go on to be successful. And that doesn't mean that the child has to be a statistic. But we have to deal with this fornication issue because it has a trickle-down effect on all of society. And that's the reason why we do have a lot of absentee men, because you give men these marital benefits before there's a ring on your finger. And then this the result of it. And if you're a woman in a situation in which you have a deadbeat baby daddy or whoever, we bash them a lot. We bash the men, but you got to take responsibility for that too, for the simple fact that it takes 2 people to have sex. And again, if you gave marital benefits before you had a ring on the finger, you have to deal with the results. So don't bash the man completely without saying, well, I was wrong for doing my part in it. But more so, and that's not to, take any responsibility off a man who's not taking care of his child or whatnot, but just saying you have to take responsibility also. So, but anyway, back to the men, it is a God-ordained purpose that a man has in a household. And a man sets the order, he sets discipline, he teaches character and integrity. Now, again, if you're a single mother, that doesn't mean that you cannot be an effective parent. Just look at that parent in Baltimore last week that snatched her son up out the streets. And I saw one post, somebody was asking where they were saying they applaud the woman for snatching her son up, but they would have been happier if it was the father. And hearing some later interviews with her and her son, it don't sound like the father in the picture, but she seems to be doing a good job with her children. And if I heard correctly, I think she's a single mother of 5. And I salute single mothers, because during these last 6 weeks of taking care of my daughter, like me and my wife, I told my wife, I was like, I have a newfound respect for single mothers, because I don't see how anybody can take care of babies alone, because it is hard work. And, being up in the middle of the night, feeding and things of that nature. But, it's all worth it now. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But my hat's off to you. But my point is, God has a role for a father in the life of a child. And he meant for it. He said, man and woman, be together. You married, then you have sex. And again, I don't care what society says is normal. God's standards never change. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. But we got to deal with these issues of fatherless children and the issue of fornication. And I get so tired while I'm speaking about sex and fornication. I get so tired of hearing people who have sex outside of the boundaries that God set and then get mad at the results that it produced. And I'm not talking about children here. People have sex and then get mad when they get an STD. Or I'm on the issue of men and men not being in the picture. I hear so many men, they talk about how many women they got, how many women they slept with. They brag to the homeboys about who they was with and stuff like that. But then they'll turn around and whine when they have to pay child support. That is totally idiotic to me. If you don't want to deal with the results, then quit having sex. As I said in the last video concerning abortion, if you don't want the results, quit doing the act that'll bring the results that you don't want. It is that simple. But anyway, but yeah, God has a purpose for a man in the home, and as a man goes, so goes the house, and so goes society as a whole. It's a pastor here in the city where I live. He got a book that's coming out in the next couple of days that's titled "As the Man Goes, So Goes the House." And shout out to you, Bishop Geddes L. Jackson, for writing that book. I can't wait to read it. But anyway, but I'll go society as well. Just look at Adam and Eve when the forbidden fruit was eaten. And Eve, she ate it too, but God went to Adam and be like, how did you let this happen? It's through one man's offense that sin entered into the world, and then Jesus had to come to be a sacrifice for us so man can, get reconciled back to God and get in right relationship. So it's a big responsibility laid on a man, and when that one man messed up, society was messed up, and we still seeing the consequences of it today. But it's amazing to me how quickly this fatherless generation has sprung up, because when I was growing up, and I'm not all that old, but when I was growing up, like, a man having a baby and not taking care of it was unheard of, and not claiming this stuff. Now, you had incidents and, cases here and there, but for the most part, I know all my friends that I grew up in neighborhood, all of us had fathers. It wasn't even an issue. I mean, it wasn't. And then even if somebody didn't have a father, it was a man in the neighborhood that was seen as a father figure, and usually it was an older type person who was a grandfather type person. But the problem is today is that this generation will not respect or listen to the wisdom that somebody like that has to say. And the reason why they won't is because they don't have a father in the home to teach them to respect elders or to set discipline or things of that nature. And see, that's the trickle down effect. It's a domino effect, and we got to deal with it. Someone had a post yesterday I was talking about what happened in Baltimore, and they was talking about, all the unrest that's going on in the black community, with this police brutality and issues of that nature. But they were saying that black people, we need to quit thinking that it's only up to the successful black people to solve the problems in the black community. And he said to solve the problems in the black community, it starts with fathers. It starts at home. I was looking at the NFL draft. It was a lot of questions about some of the players, about their character issues, got off the field issues. Like, Jameis Winston had some, but he had a father in the home. But it was one that got arrested for marijuana a couple of days before the draft. I think it was Shane Ray from University of Missouri. And I saw a story when they did that draft class on ESPN talking about his father walked out on him or whatnot. But, I was saying like how all these athletes that get in trouble, most of them are fathers because it wasn't no fathers in the home to instill like some discipline and character and integrity within them. And I was telling my wife how like when you go through the draft, I think the NFL does a 3-day weekend of like character development. But the issue with that is if you haven't been taught character in 20, 21 years, you're not going to learn it in 3 days. People going to sit in that class or the seminar, whatever it is, because it's a rookie obligation, but you can't teach character in 3 days. It take a lifetime, and it start with a father in the home. And it will solve a lot of the problems that we see in society today, whether it's in the black community or community as a whole. Now, I'm talking about, the black community, but it's a problem all across the board. And like I said, back in the day, it was not an issue. There was fathers, and if it wasn't biological fathers, it was a father figure there, and we've lost that. And, it's a lot of, this generation today who would not respect the wisdom that an older man would try to instill with them because they haven't been taught it by a father. But, the role is important, whether the child is a boy or a girl. There are certain things that God ordained for a man to instill into a boy and a girl. Like with a boy, it's teach him how to be a man. Teach him, go fishing, go to ball games, teach him about sports, and most of all, teach him about the things of God. Teach him how to tie, and, things of that nature. With a girl, a man is supposed to be in a house to let the girl know her true identity. And that's why a lot of girls are promiscuous and stuff that come from like fatherless homes, because that lack of love that they didn't get from a father, they look for it in any man, and they do it through sex, drugs, and things that destroy their own soul. It really is now. But yeah, and you often hear a lot of single women say, and especially around Father's Day, you hear them say, well, I'm both mother and father to my children. Well, I applaud your efforts. I'm not saying you're not a good parent. I'm not saying you're not effective, but to say that you are both father and mother is inaccurate. You are not a father because, again, God got things that he placed into a man to give to children that you can't give as a woman. I'm sorry, you can't. That don't mean your child will grow up to be, unproductive or unsuccessful or nothing like that. I mean, the child can go up and do great things, but it'll still be a part of them that's missing. It could be a part on the emotional side that a man was supposed to give to the child that you're not able to as a woman. Now, again, I applaud your efforts. That don't mean you're not a great mother and not effective, but to say you both mother and father, no, you're not. You're not, because you don't have the traits of a man that God instilled into a man when he created him to put into the home and to put into a children's life. And again, and this ain't super deep what I'm about to say, you're not a father for this simple fact because you don't have testosterone and you don't have a penis. At least I hope you don't. I know a lot of that transgender stuff going on, and there's another devil that got to be shamed. I might tackle that later on, but anyway, again, we applaud your efforts, but no, you're not both mother and father. But to the men, just step up to the plate. I don't want to bash you, but it's important to be in your child's life. If things don't work out between you and the mother, okay, that's one thing, but still take care of your kids, instill values into them, and that's what we call to do. I mean, we are. As the man goes, so goes the house, and so goes society. Men are missing, and I don't want to beat you up. I remember hearing a guy, he wrote this book about why men don't want to go to church. You know, a lot of people talk about why men don't want to go to church. And he said he was doing research. And he said he asked this one guy, it's like, why you don't go to church? He was like, well, when I go to church, I get just as beat up in the church as I do at home. And the Bible says, like, it's better to dwell on a housetop than in a house with a brawling and angry woman. So if you live in a house with a brawling and angry woman, and then you go to church and hear the same kind of beating you getting at home, is there any doubt as to why a man who in that situation wouldn't want to come to church? So instead of beating up a man, we got to teach them and quit saying, you don't do this and you don't do that. Well, it's hard to do something, as my pastor often says, it's hard to do something and replicate something that you have never seen displayed in your own life. So if a man grew up without a father and didn't have no father figures around or no mentors, and he's stepping into fatherhood and don't know and never seen it done before, he's not going to know what to do. So instead of bashing, let's pray for these men, pray that God will send somebody their way. And we got to start getting these boys when they're young. A lot of, and I'm going to say something here that's it shouldn't be controversial. As I always say, stuff that's controversial shouldn't be, because the Bible clear on some stuff. But like, the reason why a lot of boys turn to be homosexuals is because there's no father in there to teach them how to be a real man. And I don't want to hear that about, like, well, a real man can be gay and all that. I don't hear no justification for homosexuality. God makes clear that it's an abomination. And the reason why a lot of boys turn gay, because they grew up around a bunch of women, only had a mother, and the mother in the house, all she did was male bash and caused the boy to have a negative view about, like, what being a real man is. And so he turned gay. But anyway, but the role of a father is important. And again, I pray God send people, like, especially when boys are young, that can mentor them, have that father figure, grandfather type figure in them, teach them values and integrity so they can grow up and be productive, successful men when they have their own wives and then their own children, career-wise, and first of all and most importantly, being men of God. But anyway, and that's just my prayer for today. But anyway, hope you enjoyed part 3. Part 4 be coming soon. I'm just gonna talk about the birth and being in that room when I saw my baby girl's head come out of her mother for that first time. Well, first time, only time. And some of it gonna be quite comical. And I'll talk to y'all then. Hope you're having a great day. If you're not having a great day, it's not over yet. And this week is not over yet. So just keep a positive attitude. Stay focused on the things above, not what you see around you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.